Hey, what's going on, guys? Rum Gaming here, back into the video. Today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at the Rogue in Phase 4 of Season of Discovery. Now, Rogues are typically great in open world content. We're great in PvP content, smaller group contents. We have a lot of control over a few individual targets. Typically, some of our utility does fall off a little bit in a raid environment, not a ton. However, Rogue always makes up with that with their insane DPS, and that is no different here in Phase 4 of Season of Discovery, which is why we have them rated down here as S tier. Now, Rogue will most likely be the top DPS early phase, and they will be battling it out with Fury Warrior and Feral Druid later in the phase. So if you are interested in playing Rogue this phase, it's going to be a great time to pick it up. So let's go ahead and read through some of the pros and cons now. So I already talked about their single target damage. They have great single target damage. We also have really good defensive cooldowns. So this is going to allow us to completely mitigate damage or just completely leave combat with something like our Vanish. We have the best mobility out of any melee DPS, and we also have really good crowd control and interrupts. So that's typically where you will see a lot of utility coming from Rogue is through their kicks. And we are pretty gear dependent, so that's going to be one of the first cons here. We do take quite a bit of hit to get our damage going. So items with a lot of hit rating are going to be our friend, especially early phase. And a lot of the times we'll be running specific trinkets that will help us kind of fill the gap in any sort of missing hit. We're also pretty susceptible to roots and slows. So if you are in like a PvP scenario where you're fighting like a Frost Mage, for example, you are going to struggle. And it really requires us, and this kind of brings me to our third point here, to get a lot of uptime on a specific target. So it takes a while to get your slice and dice charges, your bleeds, your combo points going. So the more your target swapping, it can be a little bit difficult to keep your damage up. And then final con here, we don't bring any sort of unique buffs to the group. All right, now moving on to our stat priority. Our main focus is going to be getting that 9% hit chance. So this is going to be the cap for special attacks against Molten Core bosses, which are being treated as +3 our level. Then Rogue will focus a little bit more on crit than other specs, something like a Feral Druid, which will focus a little bit more on attack power. So the stats do almost get flipped up on their head, with attack power and strength being at the bottom, and then crit chance and agility moving up, as agility does give some critical strike chance. So critical strikes obviously just giving us 200% damage on our normal swings. Then agility, which is going to give us 1 attack power per agility, a small amount of crit, dodge, and armor. Strength, which is going to give us 2 attack power per 1 strength. So that's typically why it's higher than attack power. Is on gear, we'll find better ratios of strength than just raw attack power. So we typically want to prioritize that over AP. Now, with your finger rune, which is going to be, for example, like dagger specialization, in the precision talent, you really only need 1% hit chance to reach the melee hit cap. Now, from your poisons, you do still benefit from hit chance until you reach that 16% spell hit chance cap. But since we start so close to 9% by default, gearing for hit chances, I don't want to say it's going to be less of a priority, but less of a chore than it was before. All right, let's go ahead and move into talents now. You may notice that my Chihuahua over here on the right has significantly grown in size. He is going to be our ad blocker, so we do, as always, appreciate you, Mr. Biscuits, for blocking out the ads that we don't want to see. So Mutilate right now looks to be the strongest build in Phase 4, but it's just a little bit ahead of the Saber Slash build in terms of just raw DPS output. So overall, holistically, we'll dive more into the rotation. But you're going to want to maintain your Slice and Dice. Then you're going to want to use Rupture to maintain the Carnage rune. And then we're going to fit as many Envenoms in between as we possibly can. So we will talk about all that later in the guide. But for now, let's just quickly look at talents. So you can see in the combat tree, we are running Blade Flurry. It's a 2-minute cooldown. It's going to increase our attack speed by 20%. So this is a very strong cooldown. It does cost 25 energy. Over here on the assassination side, we are running improved poisons, right? Since we are going like an Envenom type build, we want to be able to beef up our poisons as much as we possibly can. So 5 points into improved poisons. We're also going to be running Cold Blood. So that's another one of our major cooldowns, a 3-minute cooldown. It's going to increase the crit chance of our next Sinister Strike, Backstab, Ambush, or Eviscerate by 100%. Then down here, we have Seal Fate. And this is one of the main reasons why we like Critical Strikes so much. Is because due to Seal Fate, your critical strikes from abilities that add combo points have an 80% chance to add an additional combo point. So one of the nice things about Rogue right now in phase 4 is it's just very efficient. Being able to get a 2-for-1 combo on your combo points is really nice. Through a lot of our runes, we're able to conserve a lot of energy that would otherwise be spent. So we just have a lot of ways to really conserve our resources and get the maximum value out of them. So this is one of the reasons to me that Rogue is so fun to play right now, is because everything just flows real nicely together. You get lots of combo points and you get lots of energy, and you can kind of spam spells, which is, to me, a very fun way to play Rogue. Going back to the combat tree, we have precision. So this is kind of what we were talking about earlier. This is why we get so close to that 9% melee hit cap, is because we already get 5% for precision, which is really nice. Right below precision, we're putting 5 points into dual wield specialization, just a little bit of pat the stats on your offhand weapon. Outside of that, nothing else too crazy going on in the combat tree. Let's jump over to assassination. So improved slice and dice. Slice and dice is going to be very core to keep up. So we're going to increase that duration to 45%. So we're having to put less globals into it. Down here in the middle, we do have vile poisons. So this is just like a better version of improved poisons to me. It's going to increase the damage by 20%. So you get 20 here and then an additional 10% from improved poisons for 30% total. Then up here in the top left, we do have a couple efficiency talents, I guess I'd call them. Your finishing moves have a 60% chance to add a combo point to your target. So we're never going to argue with more combo points. And right below that, relentless strikes. Your finishing moves have a 20% chance per combo point to restore 25 energy. So this is just the talents in terms of like efficiency with spending combo points and getting energy back. And everything's just at a really good ratio. It gets even better once we get into the rune. All right, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the runes now. Let's first talk about our chest rune here, Deadly Brew. So this is going to give you the damage over time effect of Deadly Poison for free, basically, while you still benefit from instant poison damage. So what this means basically is we can put instant poison on and we also get the effect of Deadly Poison. So let's go directly below that and take a look at our leg rune Envenom. So this is going to be our primary damaging finisher. It's going to be a lot stronger than anything else like Eviscerate or Rupture. So this is why Deadly Brew is so important in our chest rune. It's because it's going to take those Deadly Poison stacks. It's going to do damage based on the number of Deadly Poison stacks that are on the target. So there's a pretty good synergy going on here between Envenom and Deadly Brew. Then our combo point generator is going to be through Mutilate. This does have an energy cost tied to it. It will award us 2 combo points, and the damage is going to be increased by 20% against poison targets. So again, going back to the poison damage. So Mutilate is just pretty much going to be unmatched in terms of the damage that it does, as well as the combo points that it generates. So it's hands down going to be our top combo point generator. Now, we also talked about Carnage earlier. This is going to be our wrist rune, and this is going to give us 20% increased damage to targets afflicted by one of your bleed effects. So this is kind of where that Rupture comes into play. And then our Rupture will also heal us for 40% of the damage it deals, which is really nice. Going to the far left here, focused attacks. This is kind of what I was talking about earlier. Between focused attacks and poison knife, we just have a lot of ways to get energy back. So you gain 3 energy every time you deal in melee or range critical strike. So that's going to be our head rune. And then in our waist rune here, instantly throw your offhand weapon to deal normal offhand weapon damage with a 100% chance to apply the poison in your offhand weapon to the target. And this will award us 1 combo point, and it will also refund 5 energy per application of Deadly Poison on the target. Then over here on the sort of right hand side in our foot rune, we have Master of Subtlety. So attacks made while stealth and for 6 seconds after breaking stealth cause additional 10 damage. This will allow us to use Vanish as an offensive cooldown if needed. So we can Vanish and get that increased 10% damage. Then in the cloak rune, we don't really have any great options. We have 3 AoE options here with Phantom Knives doing the most damage of those 3. All right, moving on to our opener and rotations. So you're going to start your opener, of course, in stealth so that we can activate that Master of Subtlety rune. And you're going to make sure that you're using any sort of consumable that you possibly can here on your opener in stealth to pair with that Master of Subtlety. So your opener here is going to be 2 Mutilates into a Slice and Dice, into 1 to 2 Mutilates, into a Rupture. So this is, of course, just going to kind of depend on what procs you get. If you do get like an extra combo point, but just know that you never want to be pressing Mutilate at 4 or higher combo points, only at 3 or lower. So whenever you get 4 to 5 combo points, put those into Rupture here. And then Rupture is going to give us that increased damage from the Carnage rune that we kind of talked about earlier. So we want to make sure that we're always keeping Rupture up. So that kind of takes us directly into our single target rotation here. Now, Poison Knife is actually going to be really strong in our rotation, especially once you get those 5 deadly poison stacks up. Because every time we press this, it's an offhand hit with our weapon, it's a poison proc, and it's energy back. So this will be a very, very high priority item here, and you should use this as much as you possibly can. From here, we'll go into Mutilate. Again, don't go over 4 combo points. We'll go into our Slice and Dice. We'll want to maintain that. We'll want to maintain Rupture as well. And then in between all this, we're going to get as many Envenom casts in as we possibly can. So again, anytime that we're at 4 or 5 combo points for our finishers, that's when we're going to use them. Then for our AoE rotation, it's not very good, to be honest. You can use, for example, like Phantom Knives, but you're not going to see a ton of value out of it unless there's a ton of mobs, like 6, 7, 8 mobs. Even then, probably like 7, 8, 9 mobs, really. Most of the time, you're going to be just kind of relying on your single target rotation and then just kind of using Blade Fury down here at the bottom to turn your strikes into AoE strikes. You, of course, could also use Crimson Tempest, for example, if the mobs are going to live the full duration, or you could also go into Blunderbuss. But for the most part, you're just going to be pressing Blade Flurry and then going into your single target rotation still. Okay, going into our cooldowns here, we did just kind of talk about Blade Flurry. Obviously, you want to try to use this when there are 2 or more targets. Now, you can also use this just on single targets, just kind of on cooldown throughout your rotation. This can also be used in your opener as well. Then we can pair Cold-Blooded with our Envenom. Typically, you'll want to use it on your very first Envenom within your rotation. And then for Vanish here, typically you can actually pair the Master of Subtlety buff that you're getting from Vanish with your Cold-Blooded to put that into the Envenom. You can also use it mid-fight to cast a Garrote instead of a Rupture if needed. This is a lot of times pretty good because you could save those combo points and instead put them into something like an Envenom. Then one thing that you want to make sure of is before you do go into Vanish, you want to make sure that you do have some energy kind of pulled up by like 50, 60 energy, because you don't want to Vanish and then have to sit and just kind of wait for energy to tick up. So you want everything to just kind of flow real nicely with your Vanish. All right, guys, and for BiS Gear, I'm not going to talk about everything. There's just too much to really go over here. Feel free to take a screenshot. This website's called 60upgrades.com, SIXTY upgrades.com. You can build out your own character and kind of look at some of this stuff. It will also kind of show you where you can get some of this gear from. So feel free again to just kind of go in here and build out your own character. But this is the pretty much agreed on best in slot gear set for Rogue this phase. So you can kind of see over here on the right, we got the Hodge, we got the Royal Seal. Our main hand, we're going to be running the Fell Striker. And then in our offhand, we're going to be running the Core Houndtooth. So Fell Striker coming from Ubers, and I believe Core Houndtooth is from Molten Core. Then another thing I wanted to kind of talk about as well is our tier sets. So we're going to be running the Dark Mantle 2 set here for that plus 40 attack power. Then we're also going to be running the Night Slayer 6 set here. So the 2 set Feint also grants avoidance for 6 seconds, reducing all damage taken from AoE attacks from non-players by 50%. The 4 set increases the crit damage bonus of your poisons by 100%. And then the 6 set, your finishing moves have an X% chance per combo point to make your next ability cost no energy. So you can just kind of see by looking at that set bonus how well it's going to kind of scale with that deadly poison, instant poison, and venom sort of play style. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I'm going to cover in this video. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. We'll see you on the next one.